All right, Abs. Well, we got lots to talk
Here
about.
we are.
Someone
Let's
got
not mess
shot.
around. Someone
Let's
got
not mess
shot.
around. Let's dive right into it. We're late to the party because if you're a real podcaster, you'd be airing it as and when it happens.
Yeah.
But
We're
not
not
real
Tim
podcasters.
Pool. We're
not
no
Tim
Tim Pool over there. Yeah. Do you know what, though?
I think I saw Candace Owens last night, and she's had like 2.5 million people watching her her thing.
Wow.
It's like, holy crap.
My daughter, middle child, 16 years old, in high school yesterday, her English teacher said in the classroom, "I'm glad he's dead. I hope they don't catch the gunman." And I was like,
wow,
what's his name? And then you realize, oh, okay, this is what a huge portion of the population is thinking. And when they talk about
incredible.
online, yeah, the celebrations that people are having.
Yeah, the dehumanization of this man because of his political stance is just bonkers. Like my neighbor came over and we were out fishing a couple weeks ago, and you talk about all kinds out there, and he was like, "Oh, I really like this one debater," and it was him. What's his name again?
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk, yeah. And I didn't know who Charlie Kirk was at all. And he goes, yeah, he's just like, I don't agree with everything he says, but holy shit, can that guy ever debate? And everyone he comes up against, he's got an answer for everything. And then a week later, he walks over into my driveway. He goes, you know that guy I was talking about? And I already knew this has happened because Amelia told me. And he's like, yeah, he got shot. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, it's crazy that, he's just got sensible views. Like he goes, no, he's far right. And it's not like, oh, this guy got shot, he's got a wife and 2 small children, and isn't this unbelievable? It's like he got shot, the next thing to come out of their mouths, and he's not malicious against this man, but like the next thing to pop out is like, he's far right. And it's like, wow, like we haven't fallen far from, oh, they're Jews. Oh, but they look the same as me. No, they're born a different race, so we should just nuke them all. Yeah. And they dehumanize Jews, right? And I have a really hard time believing that that's true. That people would actually say, I hope they don't catch the killer. I'm glad he's dead. Like they said the same thing about Trump, that he didn't get killed.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I just agree with a lot of their points of view, but I can't imagine thinking, I don't know. Mind you,
let's do with a thought experiment.
Trudeau.
Let's say Trudeau. And then it's like, I wouldn't shed a tear, and he's a father of children. Really difficult.
Yeah, it's funny. We went for a hike when we were in Nelson, and we went up to where Trudeau's brother died. I don't know if you knew, he died in this Kokanee Lake, way up in the mountains. This lake is something like it's 500 feet deep. It's super deep, but super small. And he's like, so this is the spot. And Tara's dad's a raging liberal, right? And he's like, this is the spot where he got knocked off. And I murmured, and he heard me. I made sure he heard me. I was like, yeah, I was the wrong Trudeau. And he kind of like, huh, like, and so that came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Would I, if I'm really honest, if Trudeau got shot, I don't think I would be rejoicing. I don't think I would ever say, I'm so glad he's dead. I don't think I'd be crying, though.
I think the thing that I realize is it's so sobering to see this play out, regardless. Constantine, I can't remember his name, he does the trigonometry. I sent you one of his quotes where he said to him, the fact that this happened on the eve of 9/11, and 9/11 was one of those moments where everything changed. And people are saying it's ironic that Charlie Kirk had a foundation called Turning Point, because his assassination is also a turning point, in that it means that freedom of speech is so under threat now that it's a warning sign. You could tell when Joe Rogan heard it coming through on his podcast. You can't help, if you're that person, I'm sure, think, what if I'm next? Because it's amazing to me that Jordan Peterson's still alive, that Joe Rogan's still alive, that these kind of, Candace Owen, all of these people that are really outspoken, given, okay, this guy was particularly, but no more than these other figures. And it's just kind of, I guess he was very much involved in the election of Trump, so he's pretty close to everything. But I think the sobering part is seeing graphic content in my reels of him being shot is not something, and it happened in the same week that Ukrainian girl had her throat slashed. I don't know if you've seen those clips. So there's two things going on at once now, is that there's a graphic murder of a Ukrainian girl getting slashed, her throat getting slashed on a subway, and she died in the subway and no one did anything. She just bled out, and you see the footage and it was a black guy that killed her. And so the mainstream media seemed to be blacking out this story because it doesn't fit the narrative. You know, had that woman been a black woman and murdered by a white person, then we'd hear nothing, you know, it'd be everywhere.
Or a Russian.
But yeah, and so because it's like, ooh, this doesn't quite fit. So there's this graphic content going out online of this girl being slashed in the throat, bleeding out on the floor of a train, and 5 people are around her watching and do absolutely nothing.
Oh my.
And then in the same week, you've got Charlie Kirk graphically bleeding out in public.
Oh man.
And
yeah, it was hardcore.
It pretty, you know, my feed was full of it, and it's a lot as a human to watch someone dying. It's really,
Yeah, it
I
is.
mean, that alone
When you see
is
his head,
really,
when you see his head
yeah.
jerk back, it's
And
like,
the blood, it's really difficult to watch that, and yet addictive, because then you kind of, for me, I want to know the update. Have they caught the killer? It's very addictive, this whole story, because it's happening in real time and it's so sensational, and you just get totally drawn in. Similar to the trucker convoy, like these moments, 9/11, where all you want to do is find out what's going on. And it does seem to be a really significant moment where people are saying, you know, the death of freedom of speech has now got to a point where people should be very afraid to speak out. Okay. See if this.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes somewhat pornographic in a way, right? Like Amelia is one that showed me about it, and then she was just like all at school. They're all looking at it over and over again. You know, since it's been. I mean, it is pretty amazing. Like it's not very often you see in real life someone's head being shot. Like it's shocking, right? Like we're so used to seeing it in the movies, but when it's actual reality live, it's you have to keep watching it to actually understand that this is actually happening. Like a life just got taken. I mean,
like JFK.
You know, the macro thing is like that's happening all the time in Russia, Ukraine right now, like all the time. You know, because they're in the spotlight. It's interesting. There's so many interesting things about what's going on. Like I'd had no idea that it was September 11th until you just told me that. I think that, yeah, if you're a famous person, you are probably upping your security, like, you know, because these events did have security and he still got through. I mean, just stacks on top of what happened to Trump, right? It's just going to get worse. We're going to see famous people hide away and not come out in public. And yeah, it's so crazy.
Well, like whenever I see the assassination of JFK, whenever that 1960s film is shown, I still watch it with fascination, because Charlie Kirk dying, as far as graphic, is up there with the assassination of JFK as far as watching a life being taken in front of your eyes. And that was such a significant moment in the 1960s that changed the world forever. I'm not saying this will change the world forever, but I think people are really sobered up by it. Like it's hitting everyone hard, whether you know, obviously there's these people that are celebrating it, and that's sick. But I think most people on both sides would go, this isn't right. Something's really wrong here. Something's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And a sensible person.
Yeah. I mean, he's got young children that will never know who their dad was. They're that young, right?
They were watching. They were right there in the crowd.
Mass trauma, like mass trauma. Everyone that's there is traumatized, because watching it is one thing, but being there in person is quite another. And they haven't caught this guy yet. Like I was watching the shot. The shot is, I think they said it was 200 yards, but to shoot someone in the throat, I think they got him in the throat, right? At 200 yards, with the kind of nerves that you would have about shooting another person, I'm sure that guy has got pumped full of adrenaline. That's a hard, not a hard shot, but a hard shot, like given the circumstance.
Mm,
Like I've killed an animal before, like a deer, and there's a lot of adrenaline coursing through. And so the challenge is trying to calm yourself down. But that's a pretty, pretty good shot.
yeah.
Um, so, and then I watched, now they've been able to, I guess CNN or CBC actually, or did a report, and they've zoomed in on the guy. They saw him running off the roof,
Mm,
climbing down. They can tell what kind of t-shirt he was wearing.
yeah.
Um,
I think they've actually got him now. And he is
really?
a military guy. Unless it's false information, they've got him and he's a military guy. Um, whether that's true or not, but it would make sense. But people who are snipers have come forward and said he might be in the military, but he's not a sniper because he was probably aiming for his head, missed,
Yeah.
and was just got lucky by getting a main artery. And also the way he escaped. Everyone looks for someone on a roof. That wasn't a smart move. He should have been in the shadows in a window. He touched objects on the way down. He touched a stair rod. You know, he was making mistakes the whole time. So
Yeah.
he was obviously good, but not that good.
Mm.
But yeah, he's left evidence, you know, all of this stuff.
It's wild how, like, my neighbor again, the first thing he said was, "Oh, he's far right," and then he said he's got really Christian views, and it's wild how Christianity has been so mocked about amongst people who don't like, you know, who lean more left. It seems like if you're Christian,
Yeah.
it's like there is so many things that brand you as a right winger. You know, you drive a gas powered car.
Yeah.
You
You
don't
have
have
a
solar
flag.
panels on. You don't have
You
solar
don't.
panels on your roof. Well, I mean, the flag thing comes and goes, right? Like you either had a flag when it was, and now it's cool to have a flag because you're anti-Trump, pro-Canada. So now the
Yeah.
flags are
But
cool
2 years
again. But if
ago,
you had a flag, you were
then
just
you're
a
a right wing
right-wing Nazi.
extremist.
Yeah, it's just like fashion changes. Like, you know, now it's flares, now it's skinny pants. And now
Well,
if you're a Christian, yeah.
this is my funniest one is if you're in shape, Tazar, you're a right wing extremist, like an out of shape.
Abigail just said that. Yeah, and
That's
now
not
this
my
whole belief
words.
in God, right? Like it's such a like this. It's so wild how. I mean, I've got crazy view. I've got some strong views about religion for sure, and that's no secret. But it's interesting that faith should be held in high regard, but it's actually not amongst a lot of people.
Mm, yeah, because
Um,
we're in an atheistic society.
Yeah. It's funny. We have a farm store down the road, on our property, and I was just shutting the gate, going fishing, and this girl was getting something out of the farm store, and she had Idaho plates on her car. And she goes, "Oh, thanks. I just got some flowers, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I'm like walking past, and she's like, "Yeah, I know I've got Idaho plates, but I'm from Canada." Like, I couldn't help but ask, like, "Why Idaho?" And she's like, "Oh, it's the land of the free. I didn't have to get vaccinated. I can own a gun." And this is like a young, attractive girl that looked like she was 28, 30. And it was amazing. I was shocked at how freely those words came out of her mouth, as far as like, "Yeah, they didn't make me get jabbed." Um,
Mm,
I was like, "Good for you." Like, didn't hold back, didn't kind of like tiptoe around whether that's even something she should say to me.
mm,
She just out and out said it. And
mm.
maybe that's a huge immersion into another culture that eventually rubs off on you and gives you courage. But she's like, "Yeah, I just went to Vancouver. Holy crap, I can't believe this place." And um,
Wow.
yeah, it hit her how bound up Canada was, I guess, coming back. But yeah,
Well,
anyway.
I'd imagine if you're in America and you're in that environment and come back into Canada, you would think these guys are strange and you wouldn't feel apologetic because you'd come in as an outside observer and think, what is going on in Canada, man? You guys are so uptight. And,
Hmm.
uh, she probably
So
just
many
has a
elephants
totally
in the
different
room.
view. Yeah.
Yeah,
But we're quite
yeah.
careful here.
Yeah, we don't want to get canceled, or yeah, we
Mm,
self-censor like crazy. It's embarrassing. I'm
yeah.
embarrassed by my self-censorship sometimes. I'm like, Joby, come on, grow some balls.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just be proud of who you are.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I wanted to ask you about what happened with your business this week.
my business, yes. So I think if you go back over old pods, the struggles of my company, Little Star Renovations, are out in the open. It's just been a constant it's just been a struggle. Like the last 3 or 4 years have just been a hard slog, and there's been so many battles I fought in Little Star. Like COVID was thought we'd all going to be over, and then it was like a peak, and we had the most amazing year ever, and then just been one hit after another with the economy slow down. So there's been, for sure, we're in a recession in Canada, and there's been a for sure slowdown, but not to the point where I've been feeling it as much as everybody else. And so I moved to Courtney because I felt like during COVID, there's no way I'm going to be able to, if the government shut down my industry, I'm going to lose my house because my mortgage is so high. So one of the reasons for moving out here to the countryside was to have a smaller mortgage and be able to support myself. And so I moved here, running my business back in Vancouver, which is about a half a day travel time to get back to Van. And my business over the last 3 years have just been making this slow decline. And I've been really soul searching, like, what have I done wrong? Is it my fault? Is it because I moved here? Has my eye been off the ball? Because my eye definitely has come off the ball, but I've put 10 hard years into Little Star. And so there's the other argument that, like, hey, you've put the hard work in now. You don't have to be 100% focused on it all the time. Like, you've got a team, you built this thing. It's okay. So there is that voice, but then there's the louder voice. It's like, you failed, you're a failure, you've lost it. It's kind of like being a sports person, and then all of a sudden you can't land the ball in the hoop anymore. And you just feel like, what the fuck? Like, what's wrong with
Mm.
me? I can't do it. And so you go through a lot of really, it's hard. It's really hard. And so I talk to competitors, and they're like, yeah, it's slowed down, but we've got a lot on. And I'm like looking at my inbox, and it's gone from a few leads. Like traditionally, I used to get 3 leads a week generally, which is like customers looking for work. We didn't land all of those, but that's what my inbox would look like. To over the last 3 or 4 months, zero, like tumbleweed blowing through my inbox. There's nothing there. And I'm just like, I think in my head, and I think I've shared this with you, I was like, I wonder whether the universe or God is, or whatever, there's a slow wind up of my company, and I'm just refusing to look at it. Like, my company is closing down, and it's just slow bleed out. And so, I'm bailing out a ship that's sinking. That's the way it feels. And so I'd hired these web guys from the young guys that were pretty keen, and I just hired them to do maintenance on my site, just check out, make sure it's all going good. And they said it's a good idea to do. I'm like, okay. And they emailed me and said, hey, we're noticing that there's a lot of impressions, Google impressions on your site, which means a lot of people are going to check out your site. Is that reflecting in an uptick in work? And I'm like, no, there is nothing happening. I'm going to Vancouver next week, and I've got one job to look at, and usually there's 6. And they were like, huh, it's weird. It's really weird. And so I think nothing of it. And they emailed me like 2 days later, and they said, we were just kind of poking around a little deeper, and we realized that you've been hacked. Your website has been hacked, and it got hacked 3 years ago. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And the hack is really deceptive and really sneaky. The hack is, if you visited my site before, and the cookies, like I guess they call them cookies in your computer, would allow you to go back to the website. So whenever we would check and make sure our website's working, because 98% of our business comes through our website, you would get there. But if you are brand new, inquiring about a reno, and went to Little Star, you would be redirected to another site that was really benign. It was selling, like, I can't even remember, just crap. Like, they probably made a few bucks from this hack. And of course you would think, okay, Little Star's hokey, and we won't be calling them. And so it was a double whammy for us. We were losing business, and we were also losing credibility on the streets because we're that guy. Oh, cheesy. You can't even get a website going. And so they pulled the hack off, and then I kind of closed my Gmail. The next morning, I opened my Gmail, and there's 4 leads there, and then there's a 5th one, and then a 6th one, and then a 7th one. Seven people looking for work. Now, they weren't all solid. They never are, but there was some good ones there. And I was pretty, like, emotional. Like, part of me just wanted to cry. And the other half of me was really excited that this was finally over, but just the feeling. And then the other part of it, I sent this email to my bookkeeper, who's a good friend of mine. And he looked at the email and he said, check this out. And we were on the phone. He goes, look at your financials. He goes, 3 years ago, the exact date that this hack was planted, your financials started to go like this. You know, it really is not like this. It's just a steady decline, like a
Wow.
wedge. And I was like, wow, this is insane. And so, yeah, there's a sense of relief that it's not all my fault, but also just a sense of like taking stock of the pain that's caused me and the stress and the self-blame and all of that. You know, I stopped myself from breaking down, but I could feel this like emotion come up in me, you know. So we are for sure not out of the woods. We have got a long way to climb. And it's funny because I shared this with my friend Matt, who's a businessman, and I think I said to him on the phone, well, it's just another, got to dig deep and fight my way out of this. Not lots of lessons to learn. And he goes, Joby, I think you've learned enough lessons in life. I don't think you needed this. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Physically,
but I'll
and
learn
with the
something
business.
anyway. Why waste a
Yeah, I
learning
mean,
experience?
it is what it is, right? And you can't, the milk is spilt, the water is under the bridge. But yeah, so yeah, it's like all of a sudden, because we've talked lots and you'd be like, yeah, I think, maybe you need to embrace the fact that there's a new season, and maybe there is a new season, because that's still on the table. But it's yeah, I mean, the proof will be in the pudding as to whether things really do pick up. But we will have lost probably about close to $3 million in gross sales from that hack. So whoever did that hack, thank you. You probably made $5 over 3 years. And it almost ruined my life, because it would have crushed our company to a pulp.
And let's just talk about what you gave up in that journey. In that 3 years, what sacrifices you made in your business?
Well, I got rid of him.
Some sacrifices, right? Sorry.
Yeah, I got rid of employees. We got rid of our storefront, which was beautiful, and I still have a hard time knowing whether that was the right thing to do. We had this beautiful storefront that got us a lot of eyes. And it gave us street credibility, because not many renovation companies have a storefront, on a main street. And it was one of the factors that moved us to the island. Now, for that, I'm grateful. And I probably lost a bit of sleep over it, for sure, and gained a few wrinkles.
And you traded in vehicles?
So yeah, and I mean, me and my wife are now driving 15-year-old vehicles, both. Which is what some people like, oh, cry me a river. I mean, it's all right. I'm okay with that. But, I guess there's a part of the silver lining in this, in any stretching experience, is that you learn. It's like if someone was to say, if you were 250 pounds, someone said you're going to have a heart attack, that's scary. But the silver lining is it's forcing you to do something about your health. It forced me to, and I've done this multiple times through the journey of owning a business, it forces you to look at the numbers and think, okay, what can I live without? So you trim. So now we're starting at a place of completely debt-free, with very, very little overheads. And so you can build from there. But I'm kind of tired of building. I already built it.
Yeah.
And tore it down, and built it and tore it down. I mean,
yeah.
It's almost worse than what Suzanne did, because she took a bunch of money, and emotionally that was tough dealing with Suzanne. But what this has done is lost us, as far as when you look at numbers and financials, it's lost, like, those clients won't come back to us, because we've been black. Now we're the company that doesn't even have, has a hacky website or whatever. So you don't win those clients back.
What did Suzanne do?
Well, Suzanne, I hired Suzanne, this is probably 6 to 7, 8 years ago, maybe more. So I needed a bookkeeper, and at that point I had a very large payroll. I had like 13 vans on the road, huge payroll. Little Star was, fairly large, but we were hemorrhaging cash, we found out later on. So we hired an in-house kind of bookkeeper accountant, and Suzanne was the one that we went with, and I was just trusting this other guy who knew numbers. Said, "Yeah, I think she's the one." So we hired this lady, and she was a lesbian girl, very butchy, very charismatic, and what's this thing I've been hearing? Love bombing. On the last podcast with what's her name?
Kim
Her name
Kim
slipped my mind.
Johnson?
With Kim, yeah, she's like, beware the love bombing.
Mm,
Anyone that you meet right off the bat says you're amazing, you're this, you're that. Beware, and it happens
mm,
with clients that are like super keen on Little Star. Little Star's amazing, and it's right at the very start. It ends in disaster. So she was a big
wow.
love bomber.
Yeah.
I'm protecting you. I'm like this guy, I think. And she would plant these seeds, and she stayed with us for like 2 or 3 years, and she would kind of cause trouble a little bit. Like, I think Sam, you got to watch out for Sam. And so she would cause all these internal battles. And I would often, because she would drink pretty heavily, and just the craziest stories. Like, she would come to work one day, and her little dog would have like a Versace like dog collar and leash on, which would be like, I don't know, $10,000 or something like that. Crazy.
Yeah.
My brother came into town and he bought me this. I'm like, oh wow. And she had this mysterious brother who lived in Calgary, who drove like all these fancy cars. He had and every time he would come into town, he would spoil her. So she would come to work wearing all these fancy clothes, and it was because her brother came into town. And then one day she said, we should go and have Christmas, a staff Christmas party at my brother's ski lodge. And she showed us a picture, and it had like a waterfall in the living room and like a Hummer outside. It was just there. And we're like, holy, this is like too good to be true. Let's do it. And like a week before we were supposed to leave, the trip got canceled because her brother had another party going on there, so we couldn't go. And then one day I came to work, and her auntie. So in Vancouver, we have a tunnel that connects us with another part of Vancouver, and you have to go through this tunnel. It's called the Massey Tunnel. And one day we come into work, and there was a big accident on the Massey Tunnel that everyone heard on the news. Oh, don't bother getting, you're going to get stuck. There's an accident in there and there's a fatality. Well, I get a phone call from her. That was my aunt. So she needs to take like 2 weeks off work dealing with her aunt. And then she came to work, and she had all this extra money that her aunt had left her. So she's like, I want to take the crew to Vegas. And so I'm like, wow, really? Like, so there was 3 of us, including her, 4 of us, 3 of us. So just the main kind of project managers of Little Star. And so she flew us to Vegas and paid for our hotels, and we had a crazy time there. She got so drunk we had to wheelchair her into the hotel one time. Just disaster. And so that all happened, but I kept saying to my friends, there's something with Suzanne. Like, these stories that she's telling are so crazy. My spidey senses are going off. And they would be like, nah, she's just like, don't worry about it, bro. Like, and the one thing I learned through this journey is you got to listen to that inner voice and that gut feeling. Like, don't trust like if you ask other people's feedback, you're not going to get the right answer. Like, the truth. And I would keep trusting my friends and keep on hiring, keep on. And one day she's like, oh, I've got all this money and I'm going to buy my apartment outright. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And she goes, yeah, I've got enough money not to work, but I want to keep on working because I love Little Star and I need to keep busy. So in retrospect, you listen to these stories and think, oh, well, you should have known that. And it's like, no, when you're in it, you've been there, right? Toxic marriage. And like, when you're in it, you're in it. And so this is where it all started to collapse. So she said, I bought my apartment cash, but I'm going to keep working. I'm like, okay. I phoned her about a week later and I said, hey, Suzanne, I just got a question for you. And it was like 5:30, so it was after work. And I was on my way to the gym, and I was calling her on the way to the gym. And she's like, oh, Joe, I can't talk right now. I'm in the lineup at the bank to pay my rent. And I'm like, okay, and clicked up the phone. And my mind starts thinking, why is she paying rent when she owns her apartment? And all of a sudden, it was like the door started to crack open, and I was like, something's not right. Like, this is obviously not right now. So I called her again no, I texted her and I said, "Hey, I know you just said this in passing. It's just really niggling me. So just you you said that you're paying rent, but you told me that you'd bought your apartment outright. I'm really thrown off by this. Can you just send me, like, don't take this the wrong way. Can you just send me proof of purchase just so I can put this to bed because there's a bug. I'm bugged by this. I know this is your personal life, but just can you do this?" And carried on. I go to the gym, get into my gym clothes, and then the phone rings and it's her. And so that was about 15, 20 minutes space. She was drunk, hardcore drunk, and losing it on me. And I was like, "I can't fucking believe you would think I'm a liar. Fuck you. What do you think I am? I've done nothing but protect you." And it's this whole projection thing, right? It's not my
Mm.
fault. It's your fault. And I held my phone up like this, and my friend Sam was with me. I'm like, "Dude, listen, she's just losing her mind, like losing it, and really, really berating me, like, fuck you, you're a fucking blah, blah." And then I hung up the phone, and I'm like, all I thought at this point was like, I cannot have this kind of chaos working for me. And
Mm.
this was a Friday. So I said, "Can you come into the office at Monday? We need to talk." And all I thought in my head at that point was, this woman is a liar, because she wouldn't, because I texted her back, said, "All I'm asking for is just show me
Mm.
that, and this conversation's over." She wouldn't do it. She couldn't do it. There was nothing for her to do. She didn't she was still renting. And so she shows up to work on Monday, like white as a ghost, sheepish. I think it's the first time I pulled a Donald Trump, like, "You're fired." And I said, "Suzanne, I'm sorry. We can't work together anymore. So just pack your stuff." And that's it. And she's like, "Okay, I understand." She took all her stuff, left, drove away. Zach, who's now my bookkeeper for, I don't know, 8 since then, and become a good friend of mine, I hire him. He calls me, I think that day, said, "Hey, I'm just like wondering if you need a bookkeeper. I'm just going through the list of, I only work for contractors, and I'm looking for work." And I'm like, "Yes. And you need to start right away." I'm like, "What?" So he comes over and he goes, "Your books are in such a mess. I need to just like stay in your office and go through your books for probably a couple of months."
Whoa.
And so that's all he does. He just brings his computer. He has all his files, and he's there for months and months and months, and just going through stuff and just seeing all of this. So she had only paid half of our WCB, which in Canada you have to pay as a company because that covers you from accidents, workers' compensation. And if you
Right.
don't pay it, it's like, I think it's a federal offense. Like, it's like not paying your taxes. And she'd only paid half of our taxes too for 2 years. So not only did we have to try and stay in business paying the existing taxes on everything in WCB, we had to then back pay. So there was an instant audit, back pay for all of the WCB and tax she didn't pay. So I almost lost my house. And then Zach's kind of going through the books and he goes, "What's going on here?" Long story short is she had been siphoning off money from me for a couple of years, small amounts. She had created email accounts of employees that I had, but slightly changed the lettering. So if it was Victor, she'd spell it with a K, not a C, or something that you just wouldn't catch. And while they were at work, she would e-transfer them money, and then she would go into the account that she created for them. It would be like Victor at littlestarrenovations.com, but the spelling was a little bit different. And then transfer that money to herself. And this has been happening. So she'd been siphoning, and we worked out she'd taken, because she was on payroll too, but she had taken over and above what I paid her $100,000 and also not paid the WCB. So she created an absolute disaster for me. And so we found this, all of a sudden Pandora's box got open and we found this fraud. And it was like, holy shit. She's been, so the trip to Vegas, I paid for that. All of the fancy stuff that she come to work with, I paid for that.
You were the brother.
Yeah. So I called the brother. I found because she told me he worked for a successful alarm company. So her last name was Larkham. I looked up Larkham, Calgary, found him, phoned him up. And he wasn't the nicest guy on the phone. He was kind of not super friendly, but why would you be if someone cold called you and said, "Oh, your sister's working for me. I just need to
Mm.
talk to you for a second." And he was a bit cagey. And he's like, "Oh, yeah." I could tell right away that this wasn't anything new to him. And I said, "I just got one question for you." And in my head, I said to myself, I bet he drives an old Ford F-150. And I said, I just need to ask you what kind of car you drive. Because Suzanne told me he drove a Maserati. He's like, I drive a 2006 or whatever it was then, Ford F-150. And I just laughed to myself. I said, well, your sister, I almost lost my company to her. Like, she's stolen it. He goes, I'm sorry that happened to you. This is not the first time.
Wow.
So it turns out that Suzanne was bipolar. I mean, the story just goes on and on because we hired the police to investigate. The police gleaned all this information. They found, we found all the fraud. It was very, very clear. She took a stack of checks with her when I fired her. And so after all of that, she still tried to cash these checks. And so my bookkeeper was on it and he caught them, but she'd try and cash these checks and get friends to go into the bank. And we caught it. And, I called her on the fraud. I said, you ripped me off and we're coming after you. And I couldn't afford a lawyer because I knew she had no assets. So we went through the police and it took bloody 3 years, 4 years. Finally, they go to arrest her. And I said, I'm not going to get a penny back. I just want to see her in jail. They go to arrest her and I get a call from the police officer said, yeah, we went to the apartment. She died of COVID. And I'm like,
really?
She didn't die of COVID. She probably yeah.
Right.
So I never got any closure. And the little piece that I missed out from the story is once I told her that there was fraud, once I fired her, she called me up a couple days, and when I fired her, it was very like she just kind of calmly went away, and I didn't know at this point she'd ripped me off. I get a call from her like a week later. She goes, and it's like 10 o'clock at night. She goes, Joby, you got to come down. The shop's on fire. I'm like, what? Get in my truck, drive down. And we had this big shop on Hastings Street near downtown. Big. It's probably like 3,000 or 4,000 square foot shop. And there was like 7 or 8 fire trucks there and flames leaping into the sky. And she's there. She was the first person on the scene. And all my other friends showed up and we just watched our place burn. And after the fact, we now realize that she started that fire because this was pre-cloud. And in that office was all the evidence, which was the computer and the hard drives. And yeah, she had set it up. So not the first time I've been through a storm with Little Star.
So did she actually die or she just done a runner? Is she dead?
There's speculation that because she was bipolar and we kind of, Zach, I can get him on a scent, like he's like a bloodhound. And I'm like, so he often look up her name. It turns out she ripped off a mining company. She's done this over and over. And yeah, she was bipolar too. So she had these different personalities. So I think you would tell you would have these internal discussions, right? What you're doing is right. And he's ripping you off. And so you justify it in your head because you have these conversations, or one of her personalities would have been, I don't know, crazy. So yeah, as far as everyone knows, she died of COVID. I think she probably knew she was going to get arrested, and she would party pretty hard, and she probably just had some drugs with fentanyl in them or something like that.
So she is actually dead.
Or she's living in Mexico.
Yeah.
Well, there's no obituary.
And what
you
about
can't find
her brother?
anything.
Her brother would know.
Well, I haven't called him. Yeah. Water's so far under the bridge now.
Yeah.
I had a call probably a year ago when I was on the farm here, and it was some debt collector looking for Suzanne Larkham. I was like, whoa, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Wow.
And they were still looking for her, trying to get money.
Amazing.
So,
these people, catch me if you can. It's just like that movie.
Yeah, trust your gut.
It is hard to always trust your gut, though. I think that's a radical, because in the face of rational, like people around you who, like you say, and I've been it myself, when you're trapped in that, in hindsight, there's an element of shame that you can have for not picking up on stuff. But I think we're constantly bringing in information and then weighing it up. And in hindsight, you can say, oh, I had a gut feeling, but it's so hard when you're just bringing all of that information in, the good and the bad, and sifting through it and trying to figure out what the hell's going on. It's not that easy.
You kind of wonder if you were to live your life. Yeah. If you were to live your life going off of your gut, where you would be today. Like, my gut told me don't marry Allison, but I didn't listen to it. And what a shit show that caused, I mean, Gabe was looking for a bike the other day, and we went and looked at this one, and we know, and I know, and he knows. We talk about this. When you go and see something you want to buy, everything just looks. You overlook all the crap. You just like you just fall in love with the good parts and don't look at the bad. And we drove away from that, and I was like, I I didn't know I was doing this, but I think it's a really good parenting skill to teach your children is to learn to teach them to tap into their gut. And I was like, what does your gut say about this game? What's your gut feeling? Like, take away the fact that it was a sexy bike and you'd love a new bike and all of that. He's like, yeah, no, I don't think this is the one, Dad. You know,
Yeah.
and so there's a sense of loss when you speak those words, right? Because now all of a sudden, and it's interesting because as soon as he said that, I then started to like say, well, are you sure? Because it's
Yeah.
like this tug of war with a parent, right? You don't want to spend the money, but then they say, yeah, I don't want it. You're like, you sure you don't want it? Because you kind of want to give them the gift.
Yeah.
But I think it's like such a good skill to teach your children to like tap in when they're making decisions to like see if they can tap into that feeling of your body. What's your body telling you?
It's so hard because I'll have a gut feeling about something where I'm going through a separation and I'll have something that I'm anxious about. And I'm not always right in as much as, I'm having now separation from my children for chunks of time and I can worry about what is going on. And then I get home and everything's fine. And I've been all wound up and they walk
Mm,
in the house and I'm like, it is so difficult. One thing I say to my kids is, even if your gut is wrong, still honor it. For example, many women will say that when they've got assaulted, they will have already had a feeling, I shouldn't be walking into this parking lot on my own on a dark night, and I've had that feeling a lot
mm,
where I, sh- I got a bad feeling about this. I do it anyway. Nothing happened. But if something had happened, I would have said, I knew that I had a gut feeling that I shouldn't do that. So
mm, mm,
the thing that I'm trying to say to them is, even if your gut is wrong and you're saying to yourself, I shouldn't walk down that dark alley, what is the harm in following your gut and not walking down the dark alley? And
mm,
maybe everything will be fine and nothing will have happened. But I see
mm,
it more as you're training yourself to honor your gut, whether anything bad happened or not. It's
mm,
more about building trust
mm,
with your intuition, because the more we suppress it and go, oh, nothing happened when I walk into that parking lot, my gut isn't valid, it's not always right, it's weakening that relationship with your intuition. So then
mm.
you're more likely to discredit yourself. So I think what it's more linked to is,
What do we call it in the church? It was like, carry on.
well,
There's a bit
I
of a
think it's,
delay.
for example, with your marriage to Alison, you would have embarrassed yourself and embarrassed a community of people by acting on your gut, but you should have followed your gut. And the social etiquette is the hard part, is that like when you drive a long way to look at something that you want to buy and you've gone all that way and people have made, then you feel a sense of obligation to buy the thing, even if you don't want the thing, because there's this kind of expectation. Do you know what I mean? To like deliver, oh, these people have flown
Mhm.
over from England to my wedding. I feel a sense of obligation. That's the hardest thing to let go of,
Yeah.
is obligation socially.
Yeah, it's
Or
funny. Yeah, it was like this silly little thing happened to me yesterday. I was like going to get there's a place in town that takes we call them telegraph poles in England, but power poles, right? They make power poles, like these huge those huge poles that carry all the wires. And they have these huge offcuts that they sell for dirt cheap. And I have a sawmill, so I buy the offcuts and then saw them up, and I got cheap lumber. And I went there, and I there's this huge pile of them, right? And I want the big fat chunky ones. So I go with a spray bomb, and I'm spray bombing some of them, and some of them are deep in the pile. And then I call the driver over, and he's just an employee, so he doesn't care what he's doing. He's just getting paid to drive his machine. And I was like, all the ones that are tagged orange, and there was this one that was just buried in there, and he had to like remove almost the whole pile to get at this one. And I was just like this internal, all like I felt this like I wanted to walk over there and just say, "Don't worry about that one." And it was really hard for me to just say, no, like it's fine. Like he's not bitching about it. Why do you feel like you need to just release the pressure? Just let
Mm.
him dig it out.
Yeah.
And it's his problem that he's just, you know what I mean? And I just so badly wanted to just, this urge to go over there and say, yeah, don't. So I would take the fall. I would take the sacrifice. I wanted that log. But I was willing to not get it just because I felt like he might be feeling flustered that he has to
Yeah.
remove half the pile of wood. In actual fact, I don't think he gave a flying fuck because he was just
Yeah.
clocking his 8 hours. It's just another thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, I was watching that and I just stopped myself that was like, as a 50-something-year-old man, that was hard for me to do. It's like,
Mm.
nope, I'm just going to be the asshole. I'm going to be the
Yeah.
asshole right now. Just stand here and say, yeah, keep on digging, mate. And it felt good. It felt good to like not have to go and apologize to him.
Mm.
But it was hard for me to do. Like I wanted to go say, sorry, man, I'm sorry you had to do that. You
Mm.
know, it's this funny thing. It's like, he's working for me. I'm paying for that wood. There's nothing, there wasn't a sign saying, don't pick something deep in the pile,
Yeah.
you
But
know?
that social
But I
etiquette
felt this
is,
urge to go and apologize.
yeah. And I think that's one thing that I'm trying to say to my kids is there's social norms and etiquette that are going to interrupt your connection with your gut and make you feel a sense of obligation to do things you don't want to do. And that's where your gut feeling gets suppressed and compromised. So what happens if you follow your gut,
Mm,
even if the bad thing doesn't happen, where you go, actually, I'm going to go down this way because I've got a bad feeling about that alleyway, use that as an example. But what if you did go down that alleyway and nothing
mm,
happened? Well, there's no harm in following your gut, whether something bad happened or not, because you're training yourself to trust
mm,
your intuition. But the big thing is, I'll get this a lot. And I don't know if we've talked about this. If I buy something on Facebook Marketplace, and every woman I speak to gets this, where when when I'm driving to get the thing, I suddenly realize I'm going to someone's apartment block and it's a male and it's too late. I've already arranged this
mm,
and I'm picking up a piece of furniture and anything could happen to me. And every woman I speak to has this dilemma where they think, shoot, I shouldn't have done this. I should have said, let's meet in a public space. And your gut is freaking out as a woman because it's too late now. I feel a sense of social obligation to follow this through and not to message this person and say, actually, could we meet in the lobby? Or when you meet them, they'll say, oh yeah, just this way, come into my apartment. And as I'm going, I'm checking, going, I'm deep in the web now. I've got to trust this. This person is just a good person. Now that my gut's freaking out, but
mm,
nothing has ever happened. However,
mm.
what do you do in that situation? It's really a dilemma because your gut would say in that moment, cancel it, meet in a public space, don't compromise. And yet to date, nothing bad has ever happened because most humans are decent human beings. And, uh, and that is a tricky one because
Mm,
I don't want to be neurotic and fearful and driven by fear. At the same token, sometimes you suddenly realize how
mm,
vulnerable you are. It's like with Charlie Kirk. It's a warning. Don't speak out in public places about your beliefs. It's not safe anymore. So do we do that now or do we
mm.
stop doing that? It's creating this sense of doubt and fear. And I just don't know what you do with that because I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think your marketplace analogy is quite interesting because I've never felt that as a male. And
Yeah, you wouldn't have.
yeah, for sure that's a female thing, right? Like that's interesting. I've never ever thought that. Thought never
And
crossed my
that's
mind.
something that any woman, if you said to Tara, oh, have you ever thought this thought? She would probably be like, yeah, of course, every woman thinks that thought. You know, maybe she's got safeguards in place and doesn't
Mm,
put herself in that position. But any woman who's stupid enough to go, yeah, I'm coming now, I'll be there in 15 minutes because we're impulsively buying something on Facebook Marketplace. Every woman thinks at some point, shit, I shouldn't have done that.
mhm,
And suddenly you feel
mhm.
really, really vulnerable.
Well, it's like, yeah, it's like you watch a shark movie and you go and swim in the ocean. The chances of a shark biting you are like 1,000,000 to 1, but there's still a chance.
Yeah. But does
Yeah.
that mean you
I
never
think,
swim in the
when I
ocean?
used to work with homeless people and exactly. It would be interesting you couldn't do this, but if you were to grab all of the prominent conservative podcasters and all of this and put them in a room right now and say, when you went to the grocery store today when you came out of the doors, were you looking at high spots, high places? And did you feel a sense of heightened awareness? I bet you tons of them are like a paranoia is starting to creep in because there's been a shark attack. And
Yeah.
now, holy shit,
We're in
there's
the
lots of
water.
sharks. I bet you they're looking at high places on the roofs.
Mhm.
I bet they're speeding up their walk to get to their car. I bet they're
Yeah.
wondering, well, what if my car's been bugged and there's a bomb under here? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I guarantee you that's happening right now
And is that
because this
gut?
was, I think they said, I, well, I think Tim Pool was saying that this is worse than the Trump assassination attempt because one, it worked, but two, he was just a regular, yeah, he was prominent, but it was just like, he was just a guy,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, they said that there was a chance that he could have run for president. He had that much clout, but yeah, he's just a normal kind of celebrity.
Well, someone who's running for
Um,
president is
it wasn't
already
like only the people at the top of the pile, right?
right. But if you run for president like Trump, Obama,
You,
all of those people know they could get assassinated. It's a dangerous job. But being just a political
yeah,
figure who's really just a public figure who, it's all about public discourse,
just talking at
they're not.
universities.
Yeah, it's not the same as running for president where it's a dangerous
No,
job. It shouldn't be a dangerous job to do what he did, and all of a
yeah,
sudden it's
yeah,
dangerous.
yeah, yeah. So anyone who's doing a rally or yeah has a microphone of sorts is targeted now. I remember when talking about that intuition again, which we used to call in when we were in the church discernment, right? And I remember when I was working with homeless people and addicts and dealers and all of that, for years I did that. And those guys are like known for how they're just liars. Like they get through life by lying. It's always a web of stories and lying. And you needed incredible intuition and discernment to be able to navigate those waters because you'd be being played all the time. And I remember and I've told this to people even it's like the more you trust that voice, the louder that voice speaks. The more you give it bandwidth and traction and actually kind of obey it and listen to it. The next time you're in a situation, it's like it will speak louder because it knows that, oh, I can trust this host in a way. Like I can I'm allowed to speak. And I remember going into a place and someone's house had been ripped off because they did a B&E and it was a friend of mine. And I knew all of the criminals, quote unquote, in that town, right? And I walked into this place we used to hang out at, this pool hall. I walked up to this one guy, I said, you broke in, you stole a television. He goes, no, I didn't. Why would you think that's me? And I don't know what it was, but because I had listened to this voice, I had so much faith in it. I joked, I was like, yeah, you stole the television and you did that and you're lying to me right now. And they would just look right in my eyes and say, like, fuck off. No, I'm not. It's not me. Why don't you talk to all these other guys? Sure enough, it was him. And it became, and I did that a lot there. And they used to think that I was like some kind of like, yeah, don't mess with Joby. Like he knows stuff. They're like, how did you know that? And it was so it it was so prominent in just my everyday walk down there that it just became normalized. It became normalized to me to listen to that voice and trust it because
Mm,
over and over again it worked.
yeah.
And they would be kind of scared of me. They're like, "Yeah, you can't lie to Joby. He'll know the truth. Like, and he won't let off like a dog biting on your until
Mm,
he's got the answer from you." But it does fade over time if you don't listen to it. You
yeah,
become rocky and unsure. So I think it's a muscle that you need to
definitely.
strengthen.
Yeah, and that's what I'm telling my
You're probably
kids is
learning that too with what you're going through.
yeah, and interesting. I listened to these interrogating officers, and they said if you want a criminal to confess, just sit in front of them in silence because they will start blur. People find it so uncomfortable if you just look at them in the eye and say nothing. They start to confess, and it's probably one
Yeah.
of the most powerful techniques that you could use on anyone. Is I'm noticing like we speak so much nervously and cover up for people's social awkwardness. But if you say nothing at all, people start offering
Mm.
because you just sit there and then they go, well, yeah, and then they start over talking and oversharing. And they said that's probably the most powerful technique you could ever use if you want to get the truth out of anyone is basically just
Say
sit there
nothing.
and look at them. And those kind of things, I want to share that kind of stuff with my kids because navigating life is complex, but honoring your gut, even if it's wrong, you strengthen a relationship with it. And if you want a truth from someone, don't talk it out of them. Just sit there and allow the awkwardness to just permeate, and they'll start telling you who they are, which I think is really challenging to actually do that, to kind of push
Didn't
through
that
the
happen in
awkwardness.
adolescence when he finally broke in adolescence?
Remember? Yeah, I guess the woman was just sitting there the whole
Because
time, not really.
they're interrogating, I think she just,
Yeah,
and then he just snaps and admits it.
yeah, 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 because they're just sitting there
Very
quietly.
clever.
I've got to wrap up this call,
Yeah.
sadly.
All
Good
right.
to chat,
Well,
though.
nice to connect with you, Abby.
All
Share the
right, love
podcast with
you.
your friends. Smash that
Great.
like button.
Yeah, share it with your
Okay.
friends
Love
and
you.
enemies. All right, love you. Bye.